Welcome to Milltown Lawyers.
Greetings and welcome to the Milltown Lawyers. My name is James Dutton, and this is Debbie Dutton, my mother and law partner here at Dutton Dutton Law Firm in Griffin, Georgia, where we fight for justice with integrity. We have a practice that spans a lot of areas: criminal defense, bankruptcy, end-of-life planning, all sorts of small business help. And today's episode, we just wanted to give a bit of an introduction of ourselves, tell you our story, why we do what we do, and how we're different from other law firms. A lot of law firms, a lot of lawyers wanted to be lawyers since they were little, and this is my goal, and I'm going to be a lawyer one day, and I'm going to go to law school, and I can't wait. And that was neither of us. That was
little different story we have.
Neither of us. So we both are from here in this area, very sort of normal backgrounds. Neither one of us, aspires to greatness. We didn't want to go and be hunt down a law firm. Instead, Debbie, you were working for a lawyer at the time, right?
Well, I actually left work to raise my third child. So I'm a mother of three, grandmother of two. But
Those are mine. Those are my kids.
So I was working temporary part-time for a local attorney who just needed someone secretarial type to help her catch up. And after just 5 weeks there, having just met this attorney, she asked me if I would return to college, because I had two-year degrees and not a 4-year degree, and then go to law school and take over her practice. James had a 2-year degree, and he and I decided the very next day after she asked me to go back to school. We both entered Georgia State University, and we went to undergrad together. We even were on the Model United Nations team together and traveled and competed in New York. And we were kind of the talk of the campus, the mother and son. The professors found it quite interesting. We graduated together.
That's right.
We marched together, only he was the president of the university.
Yeah.
The university
Student
government. There we go. I knew I had that wrong. And he led the processional when we graduated, both with honors, where we earned those. And then we started law school. And after our first semester, our first year of law school, we did a study abroad, 11 different countries. We did that together. International arbitration and mediation. That was super.
That was awesome. That was so great.
He went on to do another study abroad down in Brazil. And so then we graduated. So I was 50 the day I entered law school. The security guard kept welcoming me as the professor. He just knew I was a professor because surely I was not a student in law school. But I did inspire him. He told me after the first year, he wanted to go back to college, but was concerned that he was too old. And you are never too old for anything. It's never too late. You know, I talk to young people from time to time, and I'll ask, what are you majoring in college, or what do you want to be when you grow up? And they'll go, oh, I don't know. And I go, it's okay. It's okay. I didn't know till I was 50. So,
My plan was to be an economics professor. I was going into economics. I was the top econ student in the state. They were talking to me about which office was going to be mine when I became a professor. I mean, that was a done deal. And then law school, and all of a sudden, here we go. So
it was difficult to have lunch with him. So because no matter what the topic was, he grafted it on the napkin. And he would graft it.
Here's the x-axis. This is where we're going with.
And so, but we found that law suited us in that we didn't come into it for the money. We came into it to be a positive influence in our community and to reach out and help our community. We put whoever is on the other side of our desk first before us. I know James has some stories on how he handles especially drug cases. But I'm the same way. I will tell people in bankruptcy, if you don't need to file, I don't talk you into filing so that I can go take a vacation. I want to do what's best for the person on the other side of the desk. I have a picture of Christ hanging over my desk, and so I know who I answer to at the end of the day. And I want to do what Christ would have me do. And I want to counsel the way I feel the Lord would have me counsel. So it's not about the money. It's about being a positive influence and reaching out and assisting other people.
Yeah, we have a different philosophy when it comes to that, right? Like a lot of attorneys are going, okay, how much can we charge? What can we get away with as far as charging? And I had the opportunity after law school and passing the bar to go to Atlanta and work for some big firms and put a lot of zeros behind my paycheck there, and that would have been quite lucrative. But I just knew that I had been blessed so much by Heavenly Father that I needed to come back to my hometown and sort of give back, as it were. And so instead of taking any of those big jobs, instead of doing something more lucrative, I decided to come down and take what I'm pretty sure is the lowest paid legal job you can take. I was a part-time public defender, but they gave me a full-time schedule, but I was only paid for part-time. So my first day on the job, they gave me 700 cases, 700 felony cases here in Spalding County, including 2 murder cases. And, I had 1 semester of criminal law, and I just said, guys, I don't know what I'm doing. You have to help me. Like, you got to train me. And they said, no, you'll be fine. Just figure it out. In the 2.5 years that I was a public defender, I approached each case as though it was me. I approached each case and said, what would I want my attorney to do if that was me in that seat instead of me in this seat? And because of that, in the 2.5 years I was a felony public defender, I never lost a jury trial. Now we're in private practice, and I put that same mentality to work here. There's 5 total reasons people come through the criminal justice system. And the first and the fifth are so rare, and we want it to be rare, that it's really just 3. The first is I'm totally innocent. You've got the wrong man. It was the one-armed man. My evil twin did it. And you rarely see that. And thank goodness, right? You don't want innocent people accused of crimes. And the fifth is even less frequent. And that is, I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. Like, I'm just a bad guy. I need to go to prison. That I've only seen once. I had a guy who robbed a gas station, was out in the parking lot, was done robbing, and then just decided to walk back in and shoot the clerk and then leave again. And I asked him, why'd you shoot the clerk? And he went, I don't know, I just want to shoot him. All right, man, you're probably going to prison. And he was like, yeah, no, I'm okay. All right, as long as we're on the same page, you're going to prison, So, as a public defender, you don't get to pick your cases, right? They hand you the stack of cases. But those 3 reasons are still just as important, and that is untreated mental health or undertreated mental health, some sort of addiction issue, some sort of substance issue, and hanging out with the wrong people. And it's usually a combination, right? It's usually, I was in the car with my buddies and they had some pot and I didn't know it, and now I'm arrested or I've got PTSD from my time in Iraq and now I'm self-medicating. Whatever it is, there's an underlying issue, and if you don't address the issue that brought you into my office, then you're going to be back in my office, no matter how good a job I've done on your case. We see attorneys who I like to call them dirty lawyer tricks. You win on some technicality. Someone comes in and they're addicted to methamphetamines and they're charged with it, and the system wants to put them in prison, and then they pull some trick and like the case is dismissed. You're free. And the person goes, you're the best attorney. Oh my gosh, you've saved me. and then they go home and they do meth. And then 6 months later, the police arrest them again. And then they get a big pile of money back together and they hire the attorney again and go, hey, you saved me last time. Can you save me this time? But did they? They should have dealt with your case the first time. They should have seen the human that has an issue the first time and said, hey, I know that I could get just probation. I know that I could get this thrown out on its face, but like, that's not really the issue. The issue is your addiction. How do we deal with your addiction? And in my practice, that's the bigger goal. I'm really good at fighting the fight. I know all those lawyer tricks, and the prosecutors know I know those lawyer tricks. So they know that I can make their life miserable and I can fight this fight, but I'm not asking for this just to be thrown out. I'm asking, hey, how do we get maybe the state to pay for rehab? Maybe we get them into an alternative court that works as an outpatient rehab. How do we help change the point of view of the state to how do we save this person's life and change their life?
So James had a previous client that came into my office for a probate issue. This lovely young woman who managed a store. And before we did her probate, she said, I have to tell you my story. She said, I was a meth addict and had been for years. And she said, I was this close to death. That was my next option, was death. And she said, I ended up in your son's office and he said, I will not get you out of this charge. I will get you out of this life. So don't hire me if you just want out of this charge. And she was 3 years clean, been in rehab, and just this lovely young woman. You would never have looked at her and known that she was a meth addict just 3 years before. And she said, he saved my life. He saved my life. So that's the kind of attorneys we want to be. When you sit across from me, I see my sister or my child, and I say, how would I counsel my daughter if she were here with this situation? How would I counsel my sister? So that's the approach that we take. We're coming at it with life experience under our belt. I had raised 3 kids and had multiple jobs. I was kind of a jack of all trades. And at 50, going into law school, and just with life experience and having lived in this community all of my life, that is the kind of thing that to me makes us different. It's not about the money, the life experience that we have, and the fact that we want to be here to make our community a better community for my grandchildren. So we look at things in a different way.
Yeah. My wife tells me all the time that, James, if you had repeat clients, you'd probably be able to get that Tesla that you want instead of the Toyota that you drive. I drive an okay Toyota. It's fine. It gets me where I need to go. But frankly, for me, the more important thing is those stories. Is people come back and they say, Mr. Dutton, you saved my life. I had a grandmother, a mother, and a granddaughter.
I remember this story.
Who were all addicted to meth. They were all charged with methamphetamines, and the great-granddaughter, who was a newborn, was going to be taken from the granddaughter because of the addiction issues. And the granddaughter had actually been given meth by the mother's boyfriend on her 15th birthday. And so you just have this cycle of addiction that's generational. And, they had come in and out of different circumstances, and it just in a really bad place. And I was able to not get their charges thrown out, but get the court to see them like I saw them. Get the court to see them as the humans they were, as the daughters of Heavenly Father that they were. And now they're through their cases. They're all clean. They're all, together and living happily, well-adjusted lives. In fact, the grandmother now runs a rehab for women. And it's that sort of story that makes this job worth it to me.
It's that kind of success that makes the difference. It's that I just interviewed a woman this morning, and I always ask, how did you hear about my law firm? How did you hear about our law firm? And she said, in the community. I said, any one particular person? She said, the whole community, and at church. And that's what I like to hear. I like to hear people say to me, so and so sent me, or I read your reviews. Those reviews matter to me, what people think. You become family at Dutton and Dutton. We're not just running you through like a mass filing law firm. We're not out for numbers. You become family. I know about your daughter. I know about your house. These are the types of things that matter. I have been invited to a client who just passed away. I've been invited to her funeral on Saturday, which I will attend, but her family is dealing with her belongings, and they have a lot of antiques that belong to her mother and her grandmother, and they want me to have some of those. That makes a difference to me, that they feel that comfortable with me, that they want me to come and take some of her, a table, a chair, whatever it is, that I can have something to remember this beautiful woman by. So,
well, that's also what this podcast is about. We're going to try to use this as a medium to help get information about wills, about end of life planning, about removing some of the stigma from bankruptcy.
Well, doing the stuff that you need to do before you die,
right,
that leave your family or your widow in a mess. I have so many widows that cry in my chair because they didn't play worst case scenario, or what happens if. So that's what we're going to try to help explain here, how you can be better prepared for life and for death.
And on the criminal side as well. Hey, look, there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of stuff that happens at the state level. There's a lot of stuff that happens at the local level. How do you get involved in your community? How do you get, what's the best practice if you get stopped on the side of the road by an officer? Okay, you're charged with a crime, now what? Hey, you've got a drug addiction. You got an alcohol addiction. Now what? Hey, you've been charged with, okay, that doesn't mean that God hates you, that you should, go jump off a cliff.
It never means that God hates you.
That's right. It means, hey, at some point, especially with criminal defense folks, at some point you've dug yourself a hole, and how deep do you want to keep digging? How, it's time now to get yourself out of that hole, and how can we help with that? So
it's never too late.
That's right. That's right. And not in finance, not in criminal defense. There's always something. Now there are obviously worse cases. Speeding is a little bit less of a problem compared to
fentanyl addiction.
A fentanyl addiction, or sometimes there is some punishment that comes that society wants, and it's the same thing though with addiction. It's the same thing with your health. If I just had a cold, I'd be happy. I'd like to be healthy, but if that cold really is cancer, I want to deal with it. But if I've got cancer, I don't want to just go home and deal with it myself. I want people who really know how to tackle this helping me. And that's exactly how we look at addiction issues. That's exactly how we look at these financial issues. Hey, how can we help you, the human being, our brother and sister, overcome whatever mess you're in, so that you never need our help ever again, because your life is now fixed.
And you can come take me to lunch, but you don't ever have to sit across my desk.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you for joining us today. Again, this is the Milltown Lawyers. I'm James.
And I'm Debbie.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.